Yeah, so I dropped out of high school whenever I was 16 because it was interfering with my education, and then I started teaching myself quantum physics and how to cultivate cannabis.
Say that. Let's slow that one down. I caught that. I caught
Yo,
that fastball. Let's
everybody,
slow that one
everybody
down.
loves that shit. Everybody loves that shit. Yeah, I
Let's slow.
dropped out of school when I was 16 because it was interfering with my education.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my uncles would come over to my house and they'd say, "Man, they give you all this free weed. We used to get arrested for this." I said, "Yeah, times have changed, man. Times have changed. You getting paid for this? Niggas is getting paid for this?" I said, "Times have
Right,
changed, Unc. Times have changed."
right.
Um, but Oregon has decriminalized pretty much everything.
Yeah, I remember last time I flew into Portland, it was for like this quick in and out, and I was actually going to like do some work with like psychedelic mushrooms, and I was okay, and it was just okay. But like
Yeah.
that was in October, and this was my first time going back into Oregon since the laws had changed. And like I could just tell the laws had changed on the airplane. Like the people that were on the airplane going into Portland, it was just all like looking
Oh
like
yeah.
some creatures. You know what I mean? It was like they have no reason to not be exactly what they want to be. You want to be a gremlin, you want to be a fairy, you want to be a this or that. Go ahead. Nobody's gonna tell you not to. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say this: Portland is a gnarly place, dude. I like it here, but it is it's one of those places where it's a liberal. Portland is liberal, but Oregon is conservative, and the
Mm-hmm.
values of Oregon are very much country values, while
Yeah.
while Portland itself is very much like the anarchist. So you have this interesting mix of like of this mentality in Portland of we want your freedom so badly for you that we'll kill you for it. Like the anarchists in Portland are serious. They go out there, and when we moved here in 2020, there were people in all dressed in all black, firebombing the place down there, like in protest of I don't really know what, but they're serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're serious. All right, and
They're serious.
it's part of like I feel like it's like polarizing. You know what I mean? Like you can like go and see like some random city in southern in Alabama or something like that, and then go see Portland, Oregon, and there's just like such polar like
Polar
opposites
opposite.
of way that people are living right now.
Totally different types of people live in those locations. Totally
Yeah,
different. Even the San
yeah,
Francisco life, totally different than, the Midwest.
yeah. I mean, I've been doing work up in and out of the Bay Area, in Northern California, pretty frequently over the past couple months, and yeah, the Bay is just a whole different thing now. Just seeing all the
I
people
love
that are
Oakland.
starting up their little yeah, Oakland,
I
Oakland and
love
San
Oakland.
Francisco. Like, oh my gosh, and it's been like traveling into the future because I get to see a little taste of like what's going to be happening as like all these things are decriminalizing. Because and I haven't spent as much time in Oregon, so I don't know. But like every time I go to Oakland, I'm seeing like new small businesses that are like dealing with psychedelics or dealing with cannabis or doing some new um, entrepreneurial thing in the psychoactive space.
Yeah, let me know when you come up. We'll go on a hike. It's got some great trees here, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll be
Yeah,
up there.
sequoias and all these just crazy. I mean, what I love about it here is that the trees are the tallest thing. They're taller than the skyscrapers.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually I didn't I didn't take much official training or anything like that whenever I was learning about mushrooms, but I did take a course in Eugene, Oregon, with
Ah,
fungi for the people. So like that was like
like University of
the one
Oregon.
time I actually did take a class. No, it
Yeah,
was with this group called Fungi for the People.
but I mean
Just like
that's
a
where they're at though. They're in Eugene.
oh
University of Oregon's in
University of
Eugene.
Oregon.
Uh
Okay,
huh.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I pulled up to Eugene. I had like, I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest before, and yeah, I mean, it was really interesting coming from rural Pennsylvania to see people like growing cannabis in their backyard and like
Yeah.
shooting rape up their nose and like
Oh
holding like
yeah.
little drum ceremonies and like
Oh yeah.
dumpster diving and stuff like that. All these concepts were just like, whoa, what is this?
I was laughing when I was looking through just the different social feeds and looking through all your stuff. because it's almost become a meme of itself now. Like that West Coast culture of the shamanic garb and the native roots, and it's like I also am part of that, but I also laugh at it because I'm like, wow, it's so, it's almost become a meme of itself, especially living out here. It's almost like it's a caricature of itself almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, cause like, I mean, I'll go and like, I'm not the biggest on like cultural appropriation. Like, if you want to put braids in your hair, go for it. The world's all mixed the fuck up. If somebody's not putting braids in their hair or practicing this culture or doing that, it might just disappear
Right.
forever. So like, go
Right.
for it. But like, I'll go places where people like are wearing that garb and that's just what they wear. And then I'll go to
Right.
like Asheville, North Carolina, and some privileged white kids are just like wearing some like Peruvian ceremonial gear,
Right.
like it's like the reg.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. It's like, yeah, who's to say they can't wear? I mean, for instance, I have, like we're talking about hape. I have some hape here. That's not from my culture necessarily. Can I not use that? I don't know. You know, but it's just
You know what I
interesting.
mean?
We've taken some of those things on.
Yeah. I mean, I just put this is like kind of in the same vein, but different. I posted this thing. I reposted this meme on my Instagram the other day. I think it was yesterday, where it was like, we're like so blinded by our luxuries these days, where we call our plain ice cream vanilla. Vanilla is
Yeah,
like one of the most rare shit and like herbs, like seeds in the world that you can get. On
it's
top
so
of the fact that
true.
we have frozen ice, like frozen cream in our
That's so true.
refrigerators, like in our our ice boxes. You know what I mean? I just took a rip of some hash. Like 100, 200 years ago, I would have had to go to a mountain in Nepal
Oh,
to even like
oh.
try something like this. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
think about that all the time when I think about globalization and how cool it is that in the Pacific Northwest, I'm getting a kiwi from like Chile right now, out of my climate, out of season, maybe even grown in some artificial conditions. I don't know, but and then I get it. And my expectation is that not only do I get it, but that it tastes good all the time. And then I always have access to it.
yo, like I can always get grapes. Like I got shelled peanuts,
Oh,
bro.
yeah. Native
Like somebody would have,
Americans, imagine raspberries. A Native American would find a bush of raspberries, and that might be all they get all year.
yo, for real. And you can just get that all day, and it's just like
All
perfect. And
day.
there are no twigs, and somebody already
No
like took
twigs,
all the
no
shells
bugs
off
on
of
it.
everything. Yo, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
It's
crazy
amazing
for
to think
real.
about. But we just have become numb to it. We just become numb to, because we're part of the factory farm now, in a way, you know?
Hmm. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you think about it and how you're using your life force energy to fund somebody building something, you know, that's
Well,
how I think about it. What were you saying?
how did you get into, okay, so let's back it up.
Okay.
William Padilla-Brown. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's me.
27?
27 years old.
Okay, if you can get past 27, which I know you will, then you've survived at least many of the greats. You already passed Tupac, soon to pass Amy Winehouse. If you make it to 33, you'll pass Nipsey. Just keep moving. Not that those should be our milestones. Okay, so that's great. You're located where?
New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, right now.
Pennsylvania. Okay, that's right. New Cumberland. What is that area of the U.S. known for?
This area of the U.S. is known for Amish people.
Amish people.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's like. People come here to as tourists to see Amish people in Hershey Park.
So there's not a lot of black people where you are.
There's a fair amount of black people in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. There's a fair amount of Puerto Ricans in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
That's great.
A fair amount of
Really?
Mexicans. Yeah, there's a fair amount of African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and Himalayan people.
Close to
There's
Amish country.
Yeah, just right because there's this little city and it's actually the capital of Pennsylvania and nobody knows that it's the capital. Everybody thinks Philly's the capital of Pennsylvania, but Harrisburg
And it's
is.
actually
And
really
I,
actually
I live across
I
the
feel
river
bad.
from Harrisburg. We live in the Harrisburg metropolitan area. We live in the suburbs across the river, across the Susquehanna River, which is arguably the oldest river in the world next to the Nile. The Nile and the Susquehanna are debated upon being which one's older. Um, and so we live right on the shores of the west. We live on the western shores of the Susquehanna River, across the river from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and that's the capital. And yeah, there's a fair amount of diversity, but just in that city, and then right outside of the city, it's like rural. Like it's like rural, and like it goes like on the eastern side when you go out east from Harrisburg, it's rural towards Lancaster, where it's like all Amish. Like you see people in horse and buggy still type vibes, and then like
Yeah.
if you go west on the west shore, like north up into the Appalachian Mountains, then it's the yee like ying ying boys. You know what I'm saying? Like the like ride around with the Confederate flag on the back of their truck.
Yeah,
type vibes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you get into more of the Rust Belt, I think.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. I mean, like Pennsylvania and Virginia, people don't like consider them the South, and I don't really consider them the South. Like we talk faster, we're up to different things.
Virginia,
like,
they don't consider the South?
Virginia, they do consider the South, but like we're like I'm like an hour away from Virginia. I'm an hour away from Northern Maryland. I actually used to live in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, in Maryland. But yeah, like there are like very well-off, affluent cities that are just surrounded by like what you would think that the South would be like.
Yeah, it makes sense. What about your upbringing made you fascinated with mushrooms? What would drive someone to
my upbringing like wasn't necessarily what drove me to mushrooms. My roots maybe made me more inclined.
That's a better term.
Yeah. I think through my and there's like a whole big stories to it, but like I got interested in mushrooms through psychedelic mushrooms as a young man, like as in my late teens. I got interested in psychedelic mushrooms, and in the psychedelic experience, that's where I would say my roots got me interested into it, because the psychedelic experience was completely familiar from the first time I had it. Like it was like, oh, I know what this is. Like this is not new to me. And I would say that I felt that way as a grown person now, 10 plus years after my first psychoactive experiences, with enough time to have understood it. My ancestors were tripped the fuck out, and I know that shit from like anthropological history with the like from the science that's coming out now. So like, so yeah, that felt familiar to me, but and everybody thinks I'm like, I mean, the mushroom man. Everybody's like, oh, well, MycoSymbiotics mushroom guy. But on my thing it says permaculture poppy, right? Like,
right.
And I put that as a secondary tag because mushrooms made me. Mushrooms made the success. You know what I mean? Like mushrooms gave me everything I needed to be able to liberate myself economically in this space and time. And in the way that feels good to me, because like I used to make rap music when I was younger, and I was gonna be it. Like I was like next up. Like nothing was gonna stop me from making millions off of music. I seen other kids the same age as me become millionaires off YouTube, literally while I'm still a kid. Like I'm just like, yo, they can do it, I can do it. I'm on YouTube. I'm figuring out how to use YouTube to teach myself how to do all this stuff. But by the time I was 18, I was like, yo, if I'm not making money from this, then I got to do something else, because I'm not going to be working some stupid job trying to be a rapper. Because how am I supposed to be flexing when I'm serving tables? That's not for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
you
like,
gotta really want it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, nah, like I'm not trying to be like.
That's how I felt about acting. I was like, I'm serving tables right now. This ain't the move.
Yo, for real. So I'm just like, yo, this ain't it. And like, I had a kid young too. So like I had a kid when I was 20. And so like, I was like, yo, I still want the swag. I still want the good life. You know what I mean? Like, but I was like, yo, the swag has to be sustainable or else it ain't it. So like, the mushrooms were what was able to make the swag sustainable. It was able to make the life sustainable, because I was able to do good business that like didn't hurt the world, that made the environment around me a better place. And I was able to make money. Because like as soon as I had my kid, I'm already tripped the fuck out. I'm like, yo, like I don't want any of my actions to make this world even more fucked up than it already is. Like if I have a kid out here, like, you know what I mean? Like he didn't fucking do this shit. Like he didn't like bring himself into this situation. I brought him into this situation. So if I can do anything to make it better, then that's on me. Like that's my responsibility. So I was like, yo, that's why I got to be sustainable. And so mushrooms were able to do that because, like, again, I go back to the permaculture. Permaculture is like whole systems design. Like, and at the core of my work, I am a whole systems design scientist. I design systems, entire systems, which includes, you know, social aspects, ecological aspects, all these kinds of things. So back in like 2013, 2014, I'm doing all this kind of shit. I'm like talking about foraging. I'm talking about growing mushrooms. I'm talking about.
When did you go to the class in Eugene?
In 2015. And yeah, so like that's when I started to pick up on the mushroom thing because like I'm posting all this stuff that I'm interested in. I'm literally on the internet putting everything I'm interested in on there. But the mushrooms is the shit that got the likes.
And were you already experienced in botany or any type of this type of science? I mean, it takes a certain type of understanding.
Yeah, so I dropped out of high school whenever I was 16 because it was interfering with my education, and then I started teaching myself quantum physics and how to cultivate cannabis.
Say that. Let's slow that one down. I caught that. I caught that fastball. Let's slow that.
Everybody loves that shit. Everybody loves that shit. Yeah, I dropped out of school when I was 16 because it was interfering with my education. You know. Here, I'm gonna switch this light on.
What's that about? Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I hope y'all caught that.
Yeah. So I was. I had been traveling my whole life. Like I had never lived anywhere more than 2 years growing up my whole life, and I traveled to different countries. I lived all up and down the East Coast. I lived in London. I lived in Mexico. I lived in Taiwan. And in going through all these different moves, I was able to experience so many different education systems. My mom, bless her heart, bless her soul, she like did a great job fucking raising her whole family. Like my mom adopted 2 kids in Mexico. I got another brother and sister. She raised all of us damn near single-handedly.
Wow.
Powerful Black woman. But yeah, so she works for the USDA. She managed to get herself into a good job after college with the USDA, and she put me in like Montessori school. I went to a private school whenever I was in London because the government pays for that stuff when you're overseas. And then I went to private schools in different areas in the DC metropolitan area. Then I went to public schools in different areas in the DC metropolitan area, and then I went to public schools in Pennsylvania. And saw that the kids in the public schools in Pennsylvania at 5th grade, they couldn't read. And the kids at 5th grade in the private school in London were doing like damn near robotics and like learning about world religions and like, you know what I mean? And then it's like the same thing when I would go to the DMV, like the kids would be like learning stuff that you would think that'd be like college level compared to what we were learning in rural Pennsylvania. And I'm just like, damn, like all these people are getting all these different levels of education. I'm just like, I don't need none of this shit. Like all I want to do is just grow weed. Like you know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna teach me how to do that. They don't got no classes.
What class is the weed growing class?
You know what I'm saying? But like now at the old high school, like they got me helping out teaching with growing mushrooms, and they got like a whole aquaponics system in there now, and they're teaching kids like good shit. And I'm like, yo, maybe I would have stayed in school.
That's a valuable skill, though. No, seriously. I mean, that's a valuable skill. I think a lot of the things that are taught, we're just learning them because we think we're supposed to learn them, but we never apply them. And we're not even supposed to question whether we should be learning them. Outside of the psychedelic or the cannabis stuff, just being able to be sustainable. And I'm glad you bridge right into that with permaculture, because I was researching this when I was thinking about this interview. And it's like permaculture. It says permaculture can be understood as the growth of agricultural ecosystems in a self-sufficient and sustainable way. This form of agriculture draws inspiration from nature to develop synergetic farming systems based on crop diversity, resilience, natural productivity, and sustainability. I think that's cool as fuck.
It's super cool. And like permaculture has been presented in that lens of agriculture for so long. And I was lucky enough that my permaculture teachers were like starting to focus on landless permaculture. And whenever they taught me, I was like, yo, I'm serving tables, right? Landless permaculture is like, permaculture is a design science. It's a design system. It's not just for agriculture. So they're like, how do we use this if we don't have land? Because like everybody's like, yo, permaculture is for like rich white people. because like
Right.
you have to have
I
land to do
gotta
this.
terraform it, and
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like people are like, yo, we got to bring in these, like, we got to put swales and we got to bring in these construction equipment. And like, I'm like, yo, I don't even
yeah.
have I don't even have a backyard. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like, it sounds cool to do all this sustainability and stuff like that, but like, how is this actually going to be
I'm in
effective
an apartment.
for me? You know what I mean? Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
so one of my permaculture mentors was like starting to talk about landless permaculture, but whenever they taught me, they're like, yo, all right, this is a design system and you use biomimicry. You go out in nature, you see how nature is interacting or how systems in nature work, and you use those systems to design human systems. That's how it was presented to me. So it wasn't just like agriculture. And I was like, yo, let me do this for my society. Like, let me do this as a social permaculture because like I can go outside and at this point I knew how to like go forage little plants around. I was vegetarian, so it was easy for me to eat with like foraging and growing mushrooms and having a little garden. It was easy for me to maintain myself. And I was like playing with crystals and meditating and smoking weed inside of my house and all things to keep me in a good mental state and keep my body in a good healthy state. But every time I go outside, the people are racist and unhappy and like dealing with all sorts of fucking bullshit because all of the energy is all wrapped up in wires outside. It's basically a desert. You got to go to the grocery store if you want any energy, or you got to tap in to the utility company if you want any energy. And then they send you to a school where in the school district where I'm in, they drop credits because they couldn't get enough kids to graduate. So they're like not even teaching them shit. And then they're just pumping out warehouses because Pennsylvania touches more states than any other state. So it's really good for trucking, especially where I'm at. It's the Defense Distribution Center for the United States
Know that.
Army.
I didn't know it touched more states than any other state.
Yeah. Pennsylvania touches more states than any other state. That's why the Defense Distribution Center is here. We see Air Force One every now and then. The Military Defense Distribution Center is right here in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, because all of the interstates and all the turnpikes and highways and shit connect right here to go all to the other states that Pennsylvania connects to. So like mad distribution happens here. There's mad Amazon warehouses popping up, Chewy warehouses, Thermo Fisher just came in, just all these warehouses because like, and the minimum wage out here is $7.25. So whenever these warehouses come in and they're like, starting off at $15 an hour, starting off at $14 an hour, everybody's like, yeah, that's the best shit ever. Fuck yeah. Like, that's great. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? You're going to go in this warehouse where you got like robots watching you. If you don't move for 5 minutes, you could fucking like break your arm under a big ass box. Well, and all this shit has happened to my friends, like gotten fired for a fucking robot watching them use their phone or some shit, or like hurting themselves with a FedEx or something. FedEx, UPS, that's all big out here. So I'm just like, everybody's like all tapped out. I'm like, yo, how do I do this design system to help the people around me? Because I've traveled around the world. I've seen 3D printers. I've seen the new science. I've seen people living in different ways. I've learned about permaculture now. I've gone to these convergences and seen people talking about local currencies and decentralized economic systems and like all this kind of shit. And I'm just like, yo, how do I design this into my society around me? So I started like going to the Business and Professionals group. I started going to the local borough council. By the time I was 22, I ran for mayor of New Cumberland, Pennsylvania with overwhelming support. But I eventually backed out because of just family things. And then I moved to North Carolina shortly after and started the first cordyceps farm domestic cordyceps farm in the United States. Lots of transitions, but to get back to wrap it all up so we don't go too far out of the way. Because I didn't have land to do permaculture, I was like, yo, let me do permaculture to my community. So I just started like getting outside, being active in the community, putting my voice into the community, letting people see me, going to farmers markets, talking to people, providing them with new foods into the community, things that they never seen before, providing events to increase ecological literacy. I started a festival in 2015, and it's been super successful, bringing in people from all different cities. I brought people from like every continent. I brought people from every continent except Antarctica to Pennsylvania, to fucking this little town in Pennsylvania to come learn about shit with us. Bringing in all sorts of people that have stayed at the local hotels, stayed at the local Airbnbs, used the local businesses. And I've shown everybody, I put it all on the internet. And I'm like, yo, this is what the world can be. Why the fuck are you working for Amazon?
Okay, so just let me back it up. So a few things. So first, you're naturally interested in just permaculture. And this is like sustainable living, growing all different types of plants, crops, different types of things, mushrooms, kale, all these different types of things to sustain yourself. This is something you can do individually, but your approach to this is spreading permaculture, not by just doing the permaculture itself, but by the meta level, which is spreading the knowledge of permaculture to
I just like,
others.
yep, 100%. And like, it's levels of cultural curation that I watched be done to me. Like, whenever I was 18 years old, I was like, yo, and like, especially as I was starting to come into being a young father, I was like, yo, why am I obsessed with like bad bitches and big houses and fast cars and
You tell me.
fucking garbage. Like, I'm like, yo, this shit is garbage, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like for me, like somebody, like I'm not saying like for other people, some people might love that shit. And like I know a lot of people that like loves all that shit. But for me, I'm just like, yo, who sold me this blank goods? Like none of this shit is good for me. Like I'm fucking over here poisoning my brain, spending my day thinking about a bunch of bullshit. Like at the end of the day, I'm wanting things that I can't have. I'm fucking getting anxiety because I think that there's a whole bunch of shit going on. I got fear of missing out. Like all of these things makes me feel uncomfortable. And I'm just like, and I'm very conscious of it. And I'm just like, I'm like thinking I'm a young man. I'm like, yo, I wish I like my mom used to like want me not to hear bad music and not to watch bad shit. And I'm just like, yo, I wish I would have listened to my mom and just grew up like a good boy. Cause like I don't want none of that shit. I want to be a healthy man. You know what I mean? Like I want to fucking go out in the world and be able to go get money and take care of my family and like live a happy life. I don't want to be fucking falling to the pleasures of the flesh all day because like I can't resist it. Like I feel like crippled by that shit. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, how do I do the opposite of that shit? You know what I mean? Because like we have direct, like in our hands, in our screens, our whole lives, we've been advertised to, we've been sold to. And I'm just like, they gave us the whole template for this shit. Like they've been telling us what we're gonna do next year, how we're gonna dress next year, what we're gonna, all that shit. And like for me and my girl Lydia, I met her whenever I was in 10th grade. She was in 9th grade, and we're about to have our second kid. And
congrats.
Thanks. When we were younger, I met her, and we started hanging out and started smoking weed together. Like whenever I was younger, I thought like weed would kill me. Like I was like, yo, just say no, dare, da 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 da. And like I would see her hanging out with people like smoking weed and shit. And like I'm like, yo, she looks healthy. You know what I mean? Like all the people she's hanging out with is like playing basketball and like still getting good grades and like hanging out and doing normal shit. I'm just like, yo, how are they not like weed zombies like they said in Dare?
Yeah, they're not
like,
drop dead and
you know what I mean?
Stoners.
Yeah, so I looked
losers.
that shit up on Google or whatever, and I'm like, yo, this shit can heal you. I see my grandparents be all sick and shit from cancer, and I'm just like, yo, this can heal you. So like I started smoking weed with her, and like we would be like hanging out and doing whatever we want to do. And like my dad's like in Afghanistan because like he retired from the army and in 2007, and then 2008 it's like the recession, and this man just bought his first house ever as like a man. Like he like went into the army when he's like 17. You know what I mean? He like had his shit taken care of by the army his whole life, and then he like retires in like recession. And I'm just like, got 3 kids. You know what I mean? So like, man's had to take some government. Yeah, man's had to take some government contracting job and be like living in Afghanistan during a war while his kids are in school and shit for like 9 months out of the year. And I'm just like, damn. And like that's the work that he had. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm in there like damn near helping raise my younger siblings, my stepmoms, you know, working too, like trying to make everything happen.
Do you know America was spending $290 million a day on the war in Iraq and Afghanistan? $200 million a day for 20 years.
It's absurd. It's absurd. You know, and like all of these things, like
it seems impossible.
Yeah, it seems impossible, and then like you know what I mean. Like now everything is expensive as shit. Since last week, gas prices are up $1. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's like no shit. Like I'm not even like exaggerating. It's up $1 since last week. Like for real. So like
I believe it.
Yeah. So like all this shit's going on, and me and my girl being able to like hang out without parents telling us what to do and all that kind of shit when we were younger put us in a position. And I'm not saying this is like the right thing for everybody. It's just my personal story. Just take it with a grain of salt. But like me and my girl being able to hang out like that when we were younger, like we were able to just explore our desires and our passions and shit like that. We're be able to like, yo, we think this is cool. Like no parent's going to tell us not to do it. No parent's going to tell us not to pierce this or wear this or do whatever, or like, you know what I mean? So like we were doing it. We were wearing whatever clothes or trying out new styles or doing whatever. And we would go to school and kids would be like, yo, what the fuck? Like, but like, then a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later, everybody be on that same shit. And like, we were just like, yo, we were so ahead of the shit. We were so ahead of the shit. And we used to be joking about it when we were younger. But then I started to recognize trends and I started to recognize analytics when I started to be on the internet. And I'm just like, oh, no shit. Like, I watched little shit and like did little experiments through high school. Cause like I went to 3 different high schools. Like I went to a high school in Pennsylvania. I went to a high school in Northern Virginia, and I started a rap group called Young Rebels that rappers in Virginia that are same age as us right now still making music under, that I started in high school. Yeah, for real.
Nice.
Young Rebels, you look that shit up. YUNG Rebels, you'll see people in the DMV still making music under that. And then I went to a high school in Taiwan, and like I was able to like pump out different influences from all these places, and kids are already seeing me like yo, Wills are in all these different places. I'm posting on the internet. Like I'm like literally like on some fucking building in Taipei and shit like that, like making a rap music video and shit of myself. You know what I mean? And I'll make it look like, and I knew how to finesse the computer. I knew how to do Photoshop and all that kind of shit. I had a computer in my house my whole life.
It's whatever you make it, you know, it is real. It's
real,
all about the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was able to make the album covers and make the edits and like all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So like I was out there and like curating culture at a young age, and like I could try and tell
How old
people,
were you in Taiwan?
16. That's when I dropped out of school.
16?
I turned 17 there, and
You dropped out in Taiwan?
Yeah, I dropped out in Taiwan. Yeah.
What were you over there for with your mom? Yeah,
so whenever my dad was in Afghanistan and I was smoking weed with my girl and all that kind of shit, my parents were like, yo, Will's fucking off the deep end. Like, you know, my dad was in the army, my mom works for the government. Like they were for real, like, and my mom was like, you know, put me in good schools and shit growing up. She really wanted me to be like
smoking the devil's lettuce.
Yo, for real, like, and like, you know, like she grew up through the crack epidemics and shit like that. She's seen like people in our family deal with some bullshit.
Yeah.
She was like, yo, you're gonna smoke weed, you're not gonna be able to get high enough, you're gonna want to do something else. And I'm just like, nah, mom.
Like, no, I don't want to do crack. Mom, I'm telling you, I don't want crack.
I'm like, yo, if I can't get high enough, there's hash, mom. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
trust me, you can get high enough.
She's like not trying to hear that shit. So like, I'm like, and I started skipping school. Like I started skipping school whenever my mom was living in Taipei and my dad was in Afghanistan, and I was just living in this house, and my stepmom would be working all day. So like I really had nobody. Like it was my stepmom, so she couldn't like be telling me shit like my mom.
She can't enforce anything.
You know what I'm saying? So like, bro, I'm just out here doing whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm literally like getting high as fuck, like talking to like deities and shit. You know what I mean? Like who knows? Like, you know. Like
that's the high school that most people think that they're gonna have, but they don't. My high school did not mirror that. My mom was breathing down my neck 24/7. I did not have the opportunity.
Bro, that shit was wild. And then when I went to Taiwan, like, I got caught whipping my stepmom's car without a license one night, and like my parents were like, yo, that's the last straw. Like somebody's got to be watching this kid. Like we can't let our kid like turn into a criminal and all this kind of shit. So they sent me to Taiwan. Look at you. Yeah, bro. Right. Like, so they sent me to go live with my mom in Taipei. They were like, yo, it's Asia. The rules are strict. He won't be able to get in trouble.
The Fresh Prince of Taipei.
That shit was crazy, son. Yo, and I brought this
literally exactly who you are.
Bruh, Fresh Will out here in Taipei. Yo, I was young swag boy, bro. That's my rap group. They call me swag boys.
Oh man, amazing.
So yeah, they had me out there. I couldn't find no weed, so it worked. You know what I mean? Like they had me out there sober.
I bet you can't find any weed in Taipei. No, tell me about that. You can't find just nothing. It doesn't exist
everywhere, bro. Like
someone has it.
Yo, I found hash one time after it was a Marshmello concert. I went to a Marshmello concert. And then some kid from Denmark, he had some hash, like some fucking old school, like brown hash. And we smoked it out of like this little like, silver pipe at a gas station.
Oh, that makes me feel like a crackhead.
Bro, for real, like it was just like, yo, I was 16 in fucking Asia, bro. That shit was fast lane. Like I was hanging out with like Swedish girls and fucking kids from Denmark. One of the kids I used to hang out with, his dad owned the Beats factory in Taiwan, bro. Like he had every kind of beats. He would just give you Beats headphones, just for fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was like like, because whenever we go to different countries, just like I said, the government would pay for our school. So my mom would try and put us in the best schools because she didn't have to pay for it. She's like, yo, my kids are going to get a good education. So like, they tried to put me in the Taipei American school, which is one of the best schools in the world. And they were like, nah, we can't even have him. Like, I wasn't even good enough for that shit. It was a high school, bro. And then she got me into, yo, for real. She got me into the Taipei European school. And like, that's bread, bro. Like we're talking like people pay like a regular like middle class person's annual salary is what it costs to go to that school for one kid for the year. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Sounds
college
right.
tuition level shit for a high school. So like the kids I'm going to school with is like world leaders or like kids, their family owns like big industries and shit like that. So like, and like, that's where I dropped out. And those were the kids I was hanging out with right before I dropped out. So like that shit was crazy, bro. Like my parents were trying
What'd you
to
learn
like,
from that experience?
yo, I learned what the future looked like. For real, I learned what the future looked like. I got to hang out with the kids that is like literally like in the like creating the future that we're living in and shit like that. Like, and then on top
This
of
is
it,
in Taiwan?
yeah, it was in Taipei, Taiwan. So like there was already like cameras everywhere. Everything was starting to go more digital. Like they were already having like more credit systems and stuff like that.
I hear that their petty crime is extremely low because I hear that you can leave a wallet on a park bench in Taipei and no one will take it and your money will most likely be in there.
It was super, super safe. It was very safe. So my mom felt comfortable letting us be around. Like she would let me go out and do whatever. But then I started getting in trouble. So she let me come back. She bought me a ticket to come back to the US.
What were you doing in Taiwan? What were you fucking around and doing in Taiwan?
Bro, I was trying to get high and I couldn't get high. So I was running around like a young man with full testosterone and I couldn't see my girl. Like my girl was still in Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? Like
you get locked up abroad, man.
I did get locked up abroad, bro. And like, that's some shit that
that's
we just
the worst.
touched, bro. You know what I'm saying? That shit didn't happen. You know what I mean? So like after that shit, my mom was like, yo, like Will may be depressed. Like I was drinking all the time and shit. Like I could like pull
Fresh
up in a
Prince back.
Bruh, yeah, Fresh Prince came back. Bro, like in Taipei, I was 16, 17 years old. I had 2 fake IDs. I could pull up in a 7-Eleven and they wouldn't even ID me, bro. Like they would just like, if you're foreign, you could buy cigarettes and alcohol. If you look like you're kind of older, like they would never ID me. So like I would just be drinking fucking hard liquor and smoking these crazy ass strong like tobacco, like high nicotine.
You were out of control, sir.
Bro, for real. Like I was just on one, and I made some fire ass albums while I was out there. I made some crazy music when I dropped out of school. Yo, I made this shit called what was it called?
Do you have it on SoundCloud?
I can't remember. It's on Bandcamp. It's it's cosmic.bandcamp.com or something like that. But I released a couple albums while I was out there, and I released like 3 music videos. I was doing vlogs and shit like that. I was like, yo, I'm gonna make it by the time I'm 18 or else I'm just fucking thrown out to the wolves, bro. You know what I mean? Like I knew that my parents
didn't have 18, I'm going to mushrooms.
No, I didn't know the mushroom shit though, right? Like, so like, I was just like, all right, all I wanted to do was be able to smoke weed and shit. Like, I was like, yo, fuck it. Like, getting high is the only thing that makes me happy. This world's all fucked up. Like, everybody's a fucking zombie. Like, money's stupid. I'm like,
so you were depressed.
Yo,
that's
for
what
real.
a depressed person would say.
Yo, like I was like listening to fucking like Odd Future, Wolfgang, Kill 'Em All, like you know what I mean?
Oh
like,
my god, which Tyler is hilarious, but it's horrible to listen to it,
bro. Like I mean, that shit back then was just like depressed shit. It was just like I'm gonna poke my eyeballs out and fucking rape your bitch and shit like that. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm
like
gonna hang myself, and it's like, oh my god,
that shit was so fucked up. Like you know what I mean? Like. But like that was just the era, and like I was angry, and like this is something that the world just has to be angry and upset about at some point. That the world is just fucked up, like you know what I mean, like that we're poisoning the oceans and like all that kind of shit. I was angry about all that shit. I was like, I don't want to live in this world where like my actions contribute to like the world getting poisoned or this and that. I'm like, yo, I don't want to work for some fucking bullshit. Like I was like, yo, how's everybody accepting this shit? Like I was like a young man. Just figuring out that the whole world is just like being submissive and like killing themselves, and I'm just
You're
like,
having
no
an existential
way.
Crisis.
Yo, I'm like, no way. Yeah, I'm having an existential crisis.
You're having an existential crisis.
So like, I go back.
You don't know how to cope with it because you're like 18.
Yeah, bro. So like, I go back to the U.S. and then I start growing weed in my dad's crib, and he's just like, yo, get that the fuck out of my house, bro. You know what I mean? He's like, no way. He's in Afghanistan. So like, my stepmom found out about it,
Oh
and they
my
like
God.
booted me. They
Oh
booted
my
me, bro. They're like,
God.
get that away from our family. Like, we don't want you're
Oh
gonna
my
ruin,
God.
corrupt your little siblings. And
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
yo, all I want to do is go to Cali, and if I don't know how to grow weed, then I'm gonna be broke. Like, everybody else already know how to grow weed out there. So like, I was like, all right. And my dad was like, get that shit out of my house, or I'll destroy it or some shit like that. And I was like, yo, I worked like all my little amount of money that I had from being a teenager to buy the shit that I needed to grow weed. And I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm gonna go get an apartment. So I got an apartment when I was 17 years old, and then I got
They let you
pulled
get one?
over. Huh?
How
What's
were you
up?
able to get it? They let you sign a lease at 17?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and I just looked up
Okay.
everything online. I was like figuring out all the legal shit. Like I could anything I ever wanted to know, I could look up on the internet. I didn't even have to get like emancipated or no shit like that. I just had to have a
That's
job.
interesting.
Yeah, so like I
Okay.
had a job. I was working serving at tables at a Mexican restaurant. And then I got this apartment, and then fucking the night that we were moving into the apartment, I got pulled over with all the weed shit, and I got possession with intent to manufacture when I was 17. Um, so that shit
How'd you
was
get pulled over?
my homie that was driving me, he apparently ran a stop sign, but they had a K9 unit. I was like, yo, how the fuck is this the odds of this
What?
shit? Like, so like this K9 unit walked around the car and like scratched at the car, and they impounded that shit because like
This
they
wasn't
wanna
in
look-
California. This was in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was in Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
don't
so-
like that.
Nah. And this was back in like fucking whenever I was like 17. So this was like 10 years ago, bro. Like this was way before they
They
even
don't like
had
that.
medical or nothing. We're not even allowed to grow.
Yeah.
Like we got medical and we're still not even allowed to grow here. Like
Yeah,
that
they
shit
don't
was
like
crazy.
that.
Yeah, so like I got hit with that, and then I had my own apartment. I went through the probation and shit like that. I went to live with my mom for a little bit while I was on probation because my homie was living with me at that apartment. Once I couldn't grow weed, I was like, yo, I need a roommate because I can't afford this shit. So like my homie was living with me, and he was only 16, and we'd be having homies over, like smoking weed, drinking, whatever, because we were
So they didn't
young
put you in
people.
jail because you were a juvenile. So they wanted to give you a shot.
Yeah, and they thought that people were like using me like a mule, because like my friends that were older than me and I was 17, and they were like, yo, they're using you because you'll get less charges because you're not an adult. Like, tell us that they're using you. And I'm like, no, this is my apartment, this is my shit. Like, whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna rat my homies out, you know. But yeah, so like they didn't put me in, they didn't lock me up or nothing. They just gave me charge. It was my first offense. I was a kid. Like they were just like, yo, you're a good boy. Like I was well spoken and all that kind of shit. So yeah.
So you're coming from the finest schools, the finest international schools in Taipei, to the
bro, they didn't give a fuck. I'm just
system
some nigga in the fucking
of Pennsylvania.
in
I know.
in York County. You know what I mean? Like
I
they didn't
know.
give a fuck. You know
The
what I mean?
contrast is interesting, though, is what I'm saying. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Because just, a couple months before, you were, international and at a great school. And now you're over here getting fucked up.
Yeah. So that shit was whack. And then that's when I got to the psychedelics. Like right after that probation, I was like always weirded out by psychedelics and shit like that. I always thought that it would like make you crazy. But then I started like researching and finding out more, and I was like, yo, THC is a psychoactive substance. Like I knew
cannabis
that
is psychedelic.
Yeah, so I was super into cannabis. I was growing and all that shit. I was like, yo, I know that cannabis is psychedelic. And I was like, maybe these other psychedelics aren't so bad. And then I started just that's when like that was the summer that acid rap came out. And
I love that
and
album.
that shit I was like, yo, he looks like me. Like, and he's like talking about doing acid. And I was like, yo, I thought that shit would make you crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course he's just like, I'm like, oh, maybe he might be a little crazy, but like, yeah. But I'm like, yo, this shit's vibing. And I'm like, yo, and like, at this point I'm trying to like, I was like meditating and I was studying quantum physics. I would just be getting high. I was growing my own bud. I was able to like make hash for the first time, and I could get as high as I wanted to be. So I was just like 17, 18 years old, like living with my girl.
You've achieved your dream.
Bro, for real. Like I'm living with my shorty. Like we're young. Like we got our own place. We could do whatever we want. We got a whip.
Get
like
as high as I want to get.
You know what I mean? I'll get as high as I want to be. And like as soon as I get as high as I want to be, guess what my little ass started doing? Studying quantum physics. That's what I wanted to do, bro. So like I'm like, yo, leave me the fuck alone, world. I'm gonna study quantum physics. Like, so I'm like studying this shit. I literally have met some of the world's leading like quantum physicists, astrophysicists and shit like that. Elizabeth Rauscher before she died. Like all this crazy shit that's happened since then. But like, so I'm studying quantum physics, and I'm just getting high as shit, and I'm just vibed out. And then I was like, yo, all these kids started talking about psychedelics, like the Underachievers, Chance the Rapper. I'm just like, and they're saying stuff that resonates with the science that I'm studying. Like they would say some stuff sometime, and I'd be like, damn, this kind of sounds like quantum physics. And I'm just like, yo, let me try this shit. So like, I take the mushrooms. Like mushrooms was the first psychoactives I get, and I'm just like, oh fuck, like I.
How much did you take?
3.5 grams.
Okay, that's a good amount.
I was like 17. That's what they told me. They're like, yo, that's a dose.
That's a solid. That's quite a lot actually.
Yeah, I mean, and like that was just the jump off, bro. Like
for a first time.
Yo, and like my grandfather was the.
Did you have it in tea? How'd you eat it?
I ate it straight up and fucking puked my guts out, bro. It was disgusting, and everybody was like, "Yo, eat all the dust in the bottom of the bag." And like after that first
Who told you to do that?
All like so kids that sold it to me, and I got look up on the internet, and I found out people was growing them on shit, and I'm just like, "Yo, no way, I'm gonna grow my own." Like that dust at the bottom of the bag was literally like horse shit. No way, that's fucking nasty, bro. So like, I figured out how to grow my own, and that's how I figured out how to grow mushrooms. But like during that experience is whenever I was introduced to LSD, and that's what fucking did it for me, bro. Like somebody had a fucking eyedropper of liquid LSD that they got off of the Silk Road. Somebody got a fucking vial of that shit, and they were just dropping it, bro. Like I got like 10,000 plus micrograms, and I started taking it. Like the first time I took 200, the second time I took 300, and then by the third or fourth time I was taking 700 micrograms per an experience. And I was doing it on a bi-weekly basis off some Swedish psychedelic therapy that I found, like a protocol that I have found. But so yeah, I started getting all geeked out and studying quantum physics and traveling around the world my whole life and all that shit. Like it made the trip.
Have you studied any of Stan Grof's work on psychedelics, LSD? So. He has a book called The Holotropic Paradigm Shift, and he was one of the lead researchers on LSD back in the 60s. Okay. And some of that liquid LSD, man, some of my best experiences have been on liquid LSD. Shoo. That shit the vibration just keeps going for so long.
Yo.
And it's clean. Like it's probably the deepest I've ever, even deeper than DMT.
Yeah, I mean, like all of my significant like out of body experiences or like really consciousness shaking experiences were, no, I can't say all of them, but most of them were with LSD. But yeah, I mean, like that's really how I got into mushrooms, and like I was kind of like touching on it, but my grandparents were English scholars. My grandfather was the first African American English professor in New York City at Medgar Evers University, and the way that they taught me English came through super heavy when I started tripping, because like I was like, yo, everything is language, like life is a linguistic structure, like everything is patterns, and like they had me playing like Scrabble and fucking watching Wheel of Fortune and all that kind of shit, and like playing like games and shit. Like they were like really they wanted me to help me develop my brain when I was younger. They didn't want me watching like stupid cartoons or no shit like that. And like all that shit that they did for me when I was little, when I started tripping, it all made sense. Like they had me playing puzzles and shit like that when I was little instead of watching Nickelodeon. And like I was like, yo, this whole shit is a puzzle. This whole shit is patterns. Like, and I was able to like kind of like use all my life experiences, living in different countries and all the different like things I learned to make sense of those experiences. And I was like, yo, one, I need to be able to get close to the source of what I'm consuming. Two, the swag needs to be sustainable. Like it has to, like the swag has to be sustainable. Like I need to be able to like do business that sustains me and sustains my family, and also is like good for my family into the next generations and all that kind of shit. Like I could clearly see like the whole 7 generations mentality. Like every time I'd be tripping, I could see like how my actions would affect the world. I'd be like, yo, if I touch this dollar, then like somebody in fucking China would be like this, or like if I like touch this shirt, like some little kids in Cambodia are fucking sewing it, and like I'd be like, yo, like I'll be like, yo, I don't want any of my interactions to be involved with suffering. Like I could just like, it would make me be uncomfortable, and every time I'd be tripping, I wouldn't like, the one thing that people would say would be like, you will never be the same again if you start tripping. That's just for real, bro. Like you can never unsee the shit that you see. Like just like if you have a baby or if you fucking break your leg or like something, a dramatic life experience happens to you, you'll never be the same again. That shit is a crazy life experience. Like you go see Niagara Falls or some shit. That'll change you. That'll change who you are. So I'm just like, after I've been changed, after I've seen that shit, I can't go back. Like knowing that like that there's chemicals on the food at the grocery store, knowing that the clothes I'm wearing is hurting somebody or like all that kind of shit. I was like, yo, how do I make my life different? I was like, I could just be like anybody else, or I could have been born at any other time and be subjected to whatever. But like, I'm conscious enough to be aware of this. How do I do something different?
This is what Abraham Maslow calls peak experience. You have these peak experiences, then you have these breakthroughs, these realizations. And, you have the insights that change you, that change who you are. And sometimes the knowledge or the insight that you get from a psychedelic experience is what I call like unspeakable knowledge. It's something that you can't even describe, but it's knowing and understanding. It's ineffable. Yeah. And that's something that is, has been one of the secret joys of my life to learn of. The learning of the things that I can't speak of, but if I've been on a similar journey with someone, we can just laugh because we know.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's where my work lies at this point. I really love this podcast, this talk show, really, by this gentleman named Alan Steinfeld. He's really into like UFO stuff, but his show's called New Realities, and I just love that concept. Like he's all about just like exposing the consciousness to new realities, and like I feel like a lot of those experiences are just so ineffable. But in the act of living them out, in the act of like taking whatever it is, the feelings of insight, if it only is a feeling of insight, but doing something with that in your life, like that experience may be meta, that experience may just be something in your head. But if that experience imprints on you in a way that you, instead of picking up your toothbrush and using Colgate, you start using Tom's, or you start using some baking soda and charcoal, like that changes up shit. You know what I mean? Like
it's true.
Like all of that kind of stuff. And like, and then, it all comes down to like, I don't know how many people, if anybody really trips, like you trip out, you start fucking cleaning your house or some shit. Like everybody's been tripped out or smoked so much weed that the only thing that they can think about is just cleaning up their house or washing dishes or some shit. Oh, yeah. And like that shit is for real. Cause it's like trying to make your environment more conducive of health. Like that, like this medicine, people say it's medicine all the time. Like that shit is at the end of the day, like you're trying to figure out how to be feeling
mental
better.
Health organization.
Yeah. Like a lot of the times the psychedelics, what they do, like the peak, or like the like when people say like, oh, I'm peaking, like I'm at the highest point of the psychedelic experience. Like it's like making you feel so good and showing you so many amazing scenarios of imagination and what the world can be or what life is in the universe and all this kind of shit. And then it gives you that energy for a minute. And it's like, you can figure out now with this little bout of hours and the energy you have left, how to align with what you just saw. Like if you liked what you just saw and that felt good to you, use that last little bit of energy to make your life around you conducive of you staying in alignment with that. And like,
boom.
Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? So like, then that's when the social permaculture happens. Cause I did it in my house. I did it right outside my house. I had the garden. I had all the healthy shit. And I'm just like, all right, now I got to make sure that everybody around me is taken care of and everybody around me is living in the love and in the good energy too. Because when I go outside and there's that friction and people are unhealthy, or I'm going outside and people sick or not unable to have access to wealth, that shit don't flow. I can't be chilling like that. You know what I mean? So it's like levels of like radiating that out. And that's when you recognize like we're all one. Not everybody has to take the medicine. Because if we're all one and we're all connected and I'm just an extension, if I take enough of that shit, the medicine's going to extend out. You know what I mean? If I'm healthy enough, like who I am and the way that I live my life is going to extend out around me.
That's a very subtle and true and important point, that the way that you carry yourself and the improvements that you make to yourself do affect others. But oftentimes, you're not going to have people thank you for saying, oh, Will, thanks for working on yourself in the permaculture. Thanks for spending all this time developing your self-image and becoming more confident, and then spreading that to others through financial and inspirational and other means. No one's going to notice that or say that, but they're still going to benefit from it, and you just have to know.
Yeah, I mean, like, because like at the
there's
end
no
of the
trophies.
Yeah,
for improving yourself.
I've watched so many things like if I even like went into, people would think I was like egotistical or like just like crazy or something if I spoke on some of the crazy things that I've watched ripple out from things that I've done over my life. Like even like just like little things that I said like I did in high school that I watched spread out because I was moving around so much. I would like pick up a little bit of like how people talk here, what's the language, like everywhere I go people use different slang and shit like that. So like I will come to a new school and I'll be saying slang from like 3 different places and like it would just pick up and like I like just little shit like that I watched go into like a city, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm just like a little like, and like I would have to, these are like the silent victory things like you're talking about. Like nobody, like I don't give a fuck. I don't need people congratulating me that I like put some like slang, but I could sit back and be like, damn, everybody out there saying that shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like I remember whenever I brought that shit over here, you know what I mean? Like, and just to be able to see that on a world scale, bro, I got kids. I could give a fuck less. My image is what makes us bread. It is what makes my family bread. It's what makes my team bread. Like I'm out here doing deals and contracts for my name and my image because I've connected with the culture in a way that no fucking industry or no corporation could ever do. Because I'm really out here with the people, really teaching these people for 10 fucking years, really at these festivals, really at these events and shit like that, really knowing these people, really helping people do business and shit. So like people are out here making deals and shit for my name and my image. Like if it wasn't for that shit, I would not be on the fucking internet. Bro, I got kids and like I could give a fuck less if people congratulate me if I know that when my son and my daughter goes out into the world that they don't have to face the same adversity that I had to face. That's my fucking trophy.
Well said. What was I going to say? Talk me through what the important business elements are that you have. Because I mean, you have like festival, you have products, which I want to buy some of the cacao. You have a few different streams. So just walk me through it. All
right. I'm going to take a nice fat dab here.
Good.
I'll collab from one of the streams, which I'll tell you about.
Ooh, that was a psychoactive rip. Yeah, that was a.
Gotta love it. All right, so that was a rip and a half. I started MycoSymbiotics in 2015, and before that, I had a nonprofit. I had a nonprofit called Community Compassion, because when I first got into all this kind of stuff, I was like, "Yo, money's the root of all evil. I don't want to be dealing with money." So Community Compassion wasn't really making.
Then you changed your mind.
Yeah, I changed my mind because I need, takes money to break money. You know what I mean? Like you gotta have a little bit of it to make some shit happen. And I started to recognize that shit too, because like I went through times where like I couldn't afford to keep the bills on for my kid, and like, like having a cold shower when you have a kid, that's fucking wrong, bro. You know what I mean? Like that shit ain't it. So like I'm not like too fucking weird enough to admit that like I've been through shit like that trying to hustle and start a business, like where we've been down and shit goes out. You know what I mean? Like it's like that shit sometimes. But like I just, as a father, I was like, nah, that ain't it. Like I can't be that much lodged into my ideals that I can't fucking make some bread for my family. Like I was like, no, money's the root of all evil. I can't touch fiat currency. Like it'll be part of the problem. Like, and I'm just like, nah, bro, like let that shit go, bro. You gotta
play in the 3D too, though. You gotta play the game to leave the game.
Yeah. So like, I was like, I mean, it was like also like I was really young to have been taking that much psychedelics. Like to like, granted, I did get a lot of insight out of it. Like that shit tripped me the fuck out, bro. I thought the world was fucking ending. I had bug out bags, bro. Like I was like getting ready for like nuclear warfare and granted, like that's a good thing that I had prepared for that because I started my business thinking that the world was going to end. So when the pandemic happened, I was able to stay in business because I made my business around value that is valuable whenever there's no fucking value systems. Like whenever the money systems all go away, motherfuckers need to eat. Motherfuckers need to know how to eat. Motherfuckers need to know how to have energy. So I made sure I made my business around that shit. So I'm glad that happened, but like also being like 20 years old, like that geeked out, bro. Like was a little bit crazy to deal with. But here we are. And like, I'm glad I wouldn't change anything. So I had to figure out that money was good. And I started MycoSymbiotics in 2015. And I started that and was just like, yo, mushroom farming. I figured out the mushroom farming thing. And I started doing restaurant sales. I started doing farmers market sales. And then I started doing value added product all by myself. So I had three farms operating. I had like a little micro farms, so to speak. I had like a little.
How big is a farm?
I would just say gross setups, because like the farms,
Okay.
I always said micro farms as I was doing it, because it would be like a grow tent in somebody's basement, or like somebody's whole basement built out, or like a garage built out. So like I had like multiple grows going in like garages or like side rooms in multiple people's houses, or like a barn, anywhere that people would give me space. Like literally just people would give me like free space, friends of family and all this kind of shit would be like, yo, I got an extra shit in my basement, or like.
Are these psychedelic mushrooms or just like lion's mane, or like
No,
what type
gourmet.
of mushrooms?
Like after my kid was born, I stopped doing illegal shit. Like I stopped. Well, like I mean, I got my medical card now, so like you know what I mean. But like whenever my kid was born, I stopped like growing shit that will get me in jail, because I didn't want to waste any time away from my family. So I started growing legal mushrooms, and I was growing like oyster mushrooms and like lion's mane, and I grew like 30 different species of mushrooms in my first couple of years growing mushrooms. Like I wanted to get all the weird shit, because like again, I was always on trend stuff. Like I'm like, yo, everybody's doing this. What's next? Because like I already figured out mushrooms was what's next. Like again, right before, like just to add another little, I'm always telling stories. That's just who I am. I don't care. I'm not gonna say sorry for it. But right before I started MycoSymbiotics, I was putting mad shit on the internet. Like I had a nutrition video series. I had a video series on rewilding and foraging. I had a video series just on permaculture. Nice. And I had a video series on mushrooms. And I had a video series on algae cultivation. And I had a video series on insect cultivation or insect rearing. And all my mushroom videos was the only ones that got views and likes. All the other ones got a little bit of attention, but all the mushroom videos were like getting way more attention. So I was like, all right, mushrooms are trending. Let me start a mushroom business. Like shit you not. That's why I started MycoSymbiotics.
Hold on. I want to just pause you there, because that's such that's great market validation. And I watched your videos, and the mushroom ones are good. I was watching the ones on American Matsutake.
Nice.
It looked like there's an Alan Watts video that the way they shoot it is very similar to the way that you guys shot the mushroom video. So I was laughing.
Oh man, thanks.
But I think that's a smart way of validating the idea by seeing what people pay attention to online, because Google's doing the work for you. YouTube's doing the work for you. Yep. And yeah, I was looking through, and you had like the magic butter and the magic butter machine, and then the lion's mane serum you were making, and people want this stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So I started to just kind of like feed into what people were wanting. I was like, all right, well, I can do all of these things, but like only some of these things are going to like make me money right now. So I started MycoSymbiotics off that. And I started growing the mushrooms. I got the restaurant sales down. I got the farmers markets down, and then I did value added like tinctures and capsules and stuff like that. And I started.
How do you sell to restaurants? You just call and you say, I got a bunch of mushrooms. You want some mushrooms?
Nah, I just started showing up. Like I would just show up with the mushrooms, and I'd be like, yo, here, take some of these, and like let me know if you want them. Here's my card. And like I got some good I got good sales accounts after that. Like I had one homie that's like my homie, like my like chef I hit up to do pop-up dinners, or like whenever I need like a chef to like do some shit, like that's my homie. Like Chef Kurt, like holds it down out here, and any restaurant he touches out here is the shit in Harrisburg, central Pennsylvania area. But he was buying like hundreds of pounds of mushrooms from me in a month at some points. Like
mushrooms.
Like we were going in because we were like foraging wild mushrooms. I was growing hundreds of pounds a week at my.
How much would that cost? How much would that cost a restaurant?
Wilds, I sell wilds for no less than $15 a pound. So 100 pounds of wild, like at 15.
Yeah.
Like my lowest selling mushroom $7. So at 100 pounds, that's $700. But like, I had like, I mean, like there was a point in time where I was producing and foraging and moving, 100 to 300 pounds of mushrooms a week. And like, that's whenever I was able to write my book, because I was able to save up enough money that year into the winter time. I stopped for a little bit, and then I wrote a book. That was in 2016. So I have...
That's nice production.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fire. I got 3 books. And And that's why I don't take no shit from like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yo, if I could have done that, I was serving tables when I figured out how to do that shit, bro. And it's like, I know I'm cut from a different cloth. I know I'm built different, but like, I was literally serving tables and in my spare time, like taught myself how to grow mushrooms and did it. Like, and like on the free time
That's pretty
off
dope.
the bread
That's pretty dope.
from the serving tables while I was buying my kid diapers and paying rent and bills by myself. You know what I mean? Like Shorty was taking care of the
That's pretty
kid. I wasn't gonna make my girl like I was already like, yo, it's fucked up that I can't put my kid in the best situation. It's fucked up that I can't feed my kid the best food and spend time with my kid. I was like, yo, am I really gonna take him away from his mom too and put him in daycare? Like, and like, I don't have anything against people that do that shit. That's just me. I'm like, you know, I'm built different. I wanted my kid to be able to have the best. I didn't want nobody else raising my kid. I was like, yo, I'm gonna make sure Shorty can stay with the kid. So I was really grinding. And like, you know what I mean? Like I was able to grow mushrooms and make that much off my spare time. I was like, yo, we can really, like, people, you guys are wasting your time.
The legal mushroom grind.
Diddling around, you know what I mean?
Ever thought?
But in 2015 is when it really rocked different. In 2015, when I started MycoSymbiotics, I also started MycoFest. I started a MycoSymbiotics Mushroom and Arts Festival is what I called it back then. And I started the festival because I saw all these other mushroom festivals, and the biggest one was in Telluride, Colorado. And like Telluride is like, it only has a regional airport, and regional airports are and the regional airport is an hour and some change away. And regional airports in general are already more expensive to fly into. And then in Telluride, all the hotels are like $200 a night minimum. And the mushroom festival there, the ticket's like $200. And like the festival's like a whole week long. And so you have to be able to like stay there, eat, pay for the festival, fly there, all that shit. And I'm just like, that's where all of the biggest names in mushroom science are at. So if you really want to learn some shit, like that's one of the best places to go learn. And I was like, yo, I can never afford that. Like, that's crazy. So I was like, I live here in Pennsylvania. Like, people could get public transportation from Baltimore, Philly, DC, New York City, Pittsburgh to where I live. You can hop on a Greyhound and Amtrak for cheap and get to where I live. And I was like, yo, let me host a festival right here and make it cheap as shit. People can come camp and we'll feed everybody. Because there's mad food out here. Like, people are producing and shit. I was like, yo, feed everybody. So I did that shit. And like, at my first festival, somebody found cordyceps mushrooms. And I was like, yo, these shits are crazy. I knew that they were medicinally valuable. And I knew that people were using them in Asia and they were expensive from Thailand or from Tibet. I knew they were expensive. So I was like, yo, how can I grow these? And nobody was growing them in the US. And I was like, all right, bet. So I was like on my computer every night, like looking at all this Asian fucking videos and like looking at all this research and shit. And I taught myself how to grow them in less than a year. I was the only person in the US that had that shit. I was the only domestic producer of Cordyceps militaris mushrooms, 2016 until 2017. Like, only one. And I had that shit. I was selling it for $1,400 a pound dry. And I could produce 5. I moved to North Carolina, started first farm, and I could produce 5 pounds by myself a month.
Cordyceps?
Yup. That shit went crazy. So, like, I don't produce as much right now for cordyceps, but I wrote 2 books on cordyceps cultivation that sells and makes me bread every week. I wrote a book on algae cultivation. I have an online store that we sell cultures from. So like whenever I'm out traveling and I find interesting mushrooms, I clone them. And then we have a cold storage. We also have liquid nitrogen storage where we keep all these cultures for scientific use, for culinary purposes. People can buy them off my website. I sell t-shirts. We do events like multiple events every week or every month. I mean, I personally travel around and do events, and then we have events that are hosted here. So now I have a production manager that runs the mushroom farm and handles sales. We're about to hire a production assistant to do deliveries.
Nice.
And then I have an operations manager that organizes. She does booking for me. She manages my calendar and the business's calendar. She schedules our events. And like handles all of the operations about running
Leslie
and stuff like that. Yeah, Leslie, she's killer.
She's great. I like her.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome. We've been doing really great events and doing really great business for the past like 4 months. We've done such great business that I promoted her. Like I hired her in November. She just graduated college like a week or 2 after I hired her. And I hired her just to do my booking and my personal schedule. And she did such a good job off that shit. I was just like, yo, operations manager, let's run it up. And I was like, yo, do you want to do this? Because like I'm trying to build a career lifetime team right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not playing around with no more. I've been through like 4 iterations of this team of just like trying to work
I
with my
know.
friends just to be hanging out with the homies or like trying to make some shit happen. People fucking feeling entitled
I
off some
I know how
bullshit.
that goes.
Like, yo,
Yeah.
so many iterations of that shit. I'm like, yo, I'm not even playing no games anymore. Like, if you're not in this shit to really build a career and recognize that this is an international enterprise, then you got to kick rocks for real.
I'm with you. I have the same experience, but it takes a while to as a manager, as a leader, to learn how to even give better instructions. So as you do it more times, I feel like you get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get more experience with like what you want and how to tell people what you need, and
Yep.
it gets easier. I feel like to identify who those star players are. Like I feel like before, when I didn't really know how to hire, I just hired a bunch of the wrong people, and I would have seen that now if I had had my experience, but I
Yep.
didn't have that experience yet.
Yep. Just
Now I'm
learning
just
and
like
growing pains and all that. So
uh,
I have a couple other revenue streams. I take private contracts as an independent scientist because I have developed certain techniques that are proprietary. I've taught them. I wouldn't say they're proprietary, but I've developed certain techniques that I developed them. Like nobody else made them up before me. For like different breeding techniques or working with cordyceps mushrooms or um, random like DNA stuff that I do in my lab, and I just do some like unique things that I have a know-how that is multidisciplinary that can hit different heads that different private interests find valuable. So I've taken a couple contracts. I've taken contracts with biopharmaceutical companies to do research projects for them. Not like I'm like signed and like working for them. Like I like they'll I will get hired to do specific analytical projects or research projects or breed out mushrooms or stuff like that. And then I also have contracts and do work just with like my image and stuff like that. So like I have an ambassador. I'm part of an ambassador program for Mudwater. Um, so that's one of
nice.
my income
I like
streams.
Mudwater.
Yeah, they're good people. We have some good content that we're going to be releasing to the world soon. And then I just did a photo shoot with Outdoor Voices and did some media for them. Um, yeah, it's pretty cool now. I mean, like I can go do like advertisements for good companies that I think are doing decent shit, or like um, just work with other bigger companies. And now and now my newest revenue stream is sponsorships. So because of the work that I'm doing, because of how it's good for the environment and because I'm teaching all these people and all this kind of stuff, a lot of different companies want to be associated with my name and my image and the name MycoSymbiotics. So I've been able to develop pitch decks and pitch our events or pitch myself or pitch a project to different companies that will just sponsor it, give us money or give us product or stuff like that. So those are pretty much most of the income streams
Well,
right now.
I mean, I was gonna. The reason why I think it's interesting is because have you read? Do you know Naval Ravikant?
No.
He is an angel investor. He's a philosopher, and one of the things he talks about is something called specific knowledge. And the concept is that in this new economy that we're building, and on this podcast we talk about the new wave. There's this concept of developing a unique set of skills through your own individual experiences that only you can deliver on. So with you, it's kind of like a long winding path of getting to mycosymbiotics, and to get into like specializing in mushrooms and being at a point where, for instance, people would hire you because you have a specific skill set that isn't necessarily acquirable through one degree path or one set of online courses, but it's a collection of experiences that allows you to deliver a very specific set of skills where there is no competition because it's a curated set of skills. And it's a curious set of skills that's developed from your unique interests, your unique passions that you followed to an endpoint, or not, there is no endpoint, but to the current point of their evolution.
Mhm.
And I think everyone can benefit from thinking about, I mean, because we talked about a lot today, and you have a long story arc that's still going. But in that story arc, it's you constantly following what's interesting to me, what's interesting to me, what's interesting to me. And it evolved from like young Will of like, man, I just want to get high, fuck, get in my apartment and just, do whatever I want to. Okay, how can I do this in a way that's sustainable for me and the community? And how can I create multiple different revenue streams from it? And it's a whole, but it's the same person, but morphed, and evolved.
Yeah.
Um, but everyone can take some notes from you following that passion all the way through, and then creating the business through it. And we can all take notes from how you productized the knowledge in a way too, because you're teaching it, which is one way. That's exchanging information. You productized it, which is the physical product you're selling, which like if you go on your website, which I'm going to put everything in the show notes, you can see I'm going to get some of that cacao. It's cacao and honey.
Yeah, thank you.
I was looking through, I'm like, ooh, the ingredients look so organic.
Yeah, I'm literally
honey from the basin of Chile. Okay.
For real, I'm like, I was just in Puerto Rico, like out there, like connecting with the farmers, like climbing in the mountains, looking at the chocolate. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm getting that. Yeah. I'm gonna get because I'm gonna get some 2-ounce ones to give them away as gifts to people.
Oh,
I think that's a good idea.
Bless.
But anyway, so there's that, and then there's seminar stuff. And then there's like consulting for companies. So these are all different ways where you can find, where you've taken your specific knowledge and your experiences and you've monetized them directly. So I want everyone to take note of that. It's like, yeah, he's sharing some funny stories, but there's a method behind the madness and there's like clear results from it. And that I think is really important to remember. So that I will like definitely give you major props on it.
Thank you.
Yes. I think you also have a seminar coming up in August.
Yeah, we have MycoFest in August. We have a couple in like June and July. We have 3-day mushroom cultivation trainings that we're doing. I will be popping up at a couple different events around the US over the next couple months, and then my daughter's due in May, so I will not be going really anywhere for a couple months through the summertime until August, really. I don't know about Telluride. Nobody's reached out to me about it yet. I don't know if I'll be over in Colorado or not. But after MycoFest in August, September, I don't know. I think we have some stuff going on in September. And then October, we're going to be back in Puerto Rico doing a 72-hour permaculture design certification course. So it'll be like a 2-week-long intensive class. Where we're teaching about appropriate technologies and setting up some really interesting grows. We're going to set up some algae cultivation, some pearl farming, and different tropical mushroom cultivation.
Nice. I mean, yeah, I'm going to put all of your links in the notes and email because I look through everything, and what you're doing is interesting as fuck. Like I had to stop myself from immediately registering for the workshops because I do that too much. I'm like, I overcommit. I'm like, okay, I need to like look at my schedule first because I also am hosting things. I'm doing things. I can't, but immediately I'm like, yes, I highly recommend if you're listening to this, check out the links. Again, what I think is so cool about what you're teaching is it's a specific set of knowledge that you've developed over time. And you can learn some of the stuff from books, but the way that you're teaching it is because you've done so much experimentation. That's why you call yourself a community scientist. It's not because you have some sort of like, isn't that what you call yourself? Like in your bio?
Yeah, citizen scientist, community scientist.
Yeah,
yep.
Citizen scientist. Yeah. And it's not because you have a specific degree on one thing. It's because you've been doing the work in the field, and that's what science actually is. When you've done thousands and thousands of experiments and done all these different grows. So when you look through your YouTube channel and you see all these fucking grows, I'm looking, you have like your titration up there and you're like, oh yeah, this is 75% ethanol and it's because I'm here. But if you live somewhere where you can get 90% ethanol, that's good. But just remember that you have to take, I'm just like, what are you talking about, bro? And so I'm like, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. And so, but that is like a citizen scientist. So I think it's interesting to have someone, to know someone who has this specific knowledge. And I would recommend someone listening to it to just look into it because what you're doing is dope.
Thank you.